Hey there, my friend. You have no idea how much it means that you're here watching this. And if you chose to hit that subscribe button, that would send me straight into orbit. Anyway, let's begin. It was just after midnight in my study, that strange, suspended hour when the house seems to hold its breath and every thought in your mind becomes deafening. The only illumination came from the pale, icy glow of my laptop. That's when I spotted it. That damned file. No subject, no familiar name, just an anonymous attachment, sitting like bait. I clicked before I could think better of it, and the moment the footage began, I felt the floor of my world start to fracture. Sophie, my wife, appeared on the screen, and she was moving in ways I'd never seen from her before. Unrestrained, feverish. Her fingers locked behind some man's neck while his traced an intimate path down her side. Around them, the music throbbed like a heartbeat, and the air was thick with laughter. But it wasn't just the sight that tore into me. It was the captions crawling across the bottom, dripping venom. Too good for her boring husband. Finally letting loose. Bet he has no clue. And the one that cut deepest. She said she'd drain him dry. Looks like step one's underway. I just sat there, frozen. Watched it once, then twice, then again. Every replay knocked another brick out of the life I thought I had. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone, heart pounding so hard I could barely hear. She answered after the third ring, her voice light, sing-song. "Hey, babe, I was just about to—" "Who is he, Sophie?" I cut her off, my voice taut as steel wire. "Don't deny it. I saw the video." A beat of silence, then her tone hardened. "What video?" "The one sent to my email. You, him, that party. Don't play stupid." The quiet stretched before she gave a short, dismissive laugh. "You're actually falling for whatever garbage some troll sent you. You don't even know the context." "I know enough," I said, my voice shaking. "You lied about where you were, lied about everything." "Oh, please," she snapped, her laugh turning sharp. "So I danced a little. So what? You think I'm going to rot away here while you hide in your beige sweaters pushing paper? I need more than that, Daniel." Her words hurt worse than the video. "You told me it was a quiet weekend with friends," I said through clenched teeth. "It was," she said flatly, "until I got bored. That was it. I didn't yell, didn't argue, I just hung up." For a long time, I stared at that frozen frame, her lips close to another man's ear. A version of Sophie I didn't know existed, lurking just out of sight all these years. I'm Daniel, 42, architect, the kind of man who checks the locks twice before bed, keeps extra batteries because I know life likes to catch you off guard. I drink my coffee black, enjoy mornings quiet enough to hear the clock tick, and I never finish the crossword puzzles I start. Sophie once told me I was her anchor. We met in a cramped downtown bookstore. She was heat and chaos and beauty you couldn't contain. She made me feel noticed, or maybe I told myself she needed the stability I offered. 8 years married, no kids, her choice. She wanted freedom. I wanted her. I thought that would be enough. That video was just the first crack, but I could already feel the dam straining. That evening, she came home looking like she'd stepped out of a day spa, light in her step, humming a tune I half recognized. No guilt in her eyes, not a flicker. She carried a small overnight bag in one hand, and iced coffee in the other. "Hey, you," she called, shutting the door with her hip. "You will not believe how uneventful this weekend was. Trina dragged me to some lake house, then bailed. Just me and Natalie, 2 bottles of wine, no signal, awful TV. Honestly, it was like a detox. Might do it again." I stood in the hallway, arms folded, silent. Her gaze finally caught mine, her smile faltering. "What?" she asked. I stepped aside so she could see the suitcase by the door, already packed. "What's that?" "You're leaving," I said, quiet, certain. She laughed, light but forced. "Oh, come on. Are we really doing the jealous husband bit now? I don't have the patience." I didn't speak. The air between us thickened until her brows knit. "You're actually mad about that video? You mean the one where you're all over some guy like he's yours?" The one with strangers calling your husband spineless? I said, voice flat. She hesitated for a split second. You don't know the whole story. Then tell me. It was dancing, just letting off steam. At a party you swore never happened, I said, still calm, while I was here fixing the sink and buying groceries. She rolled her eyes, stepping closer. God, you're impossible. You blow everything out of proportion. You danced like you wanted to consume him, I said, and then you lied to me. That's not confusion, that's a choice. Her jaw tightened. You're twisting it. No, I said. I'm finally seeing clearly. Her eyes flicked to the suitcase. So what? You've already decided I'm out? Just like that? You decided, I told her, the moment you set the first match to this marriage. Silence settled. Then she smiled, cold, deliberate. You think this makes you some kind of hero? Fine, but when it gets ugly, don't act like you're the victim. I raised an eyebrow. Ugly? You think I don't know how to play this? You're careful, Daniel, but you're not spotless. You've got a temper, and if I make that old voice memo public, the one from 2 years ago when you lost it, no one's going to rally to your side. The threat was sharp and measured. I nodded slowly. That's your angle. Her voice lightened, almost teasing. Just saying. People adore a woman with a grudge, especially online. I didn't flinch, didn't respond. I just walked past her, opened the front door. You're leaving tonight. She stared, caught off guard. You're not even going to talk this through? I tried, I said, years ago, when there was still something worth saving. She scoffed. You think this makes you strong? No, I said, shifting to let her pass. I'm done. She hesitated, hovering as though expecting me to reconsider. I didn't. With a sudden motion, she yanked her bag from the chair and stormed toward the door. At the threshold, she paused, tossing me a brittle smile that carried more threat than charm. You'll regret this. I promise. The door closed with a muted click. The silence that followed wasn't oppressive. It was liberating. For the first time in years, I felt free. The next morning, the house felt unnervingly quiet. No sound of Sophie's blender grinding away in the kitchen, no trace of her perfume drifting down the hallway, only the sunlight stretching across cool tiles, accompanied by the low hum of the refrigerator. I sat at the dining table, black coffee at my elbow, sleeves rolled up, laptop open. A fan of receipts lay before me like the losing hand in a card game. I'd always covered the essentials: mortgage, utilities. The extras had been her domain, or so I thought. Now, I was sifting through bank statements and call records with the care of someone dismantling a mechanism they'd once trusted completely. Every page revealed another crack. Charges from gas stations in areas we never visited, late-night ride shares, restaurant bills I couldn't place. Then I saw something that froze me. Blake Turner, $1,270, executive room reservation. Not a shop, not a company, a name. A quick online search offered little about him, but the hotel listing was unmistakable. Sleek, upscale, downtown. The kind of place you avoid if you're married and trying to keep things clean. Further digging showed multiple reservations under the same name in recent months, all billed to our joint account. Her card. This wasn't just dancing. While I covered the bills that kept the house running, she'd been funding another life. The so-called girls' weekends, the sudden headaches, the brushed-off expenses smoothed over with a kiss and a lie. And now, Blake Turner. I didn't feel fury. Not yet. It was something colder, heavier, a weight settling into my bones. I opened the call log monitor I'd installed the night before. Her number appeared, loading slowly, before revealing a string of late-night calls to BT every day. Strangely, the more the truth clarified, the calmer I became. No yelling, no smashed dishes, just a quiet mapping of her betrayal, detail by detail. She thrived on chaos. I'd give her silence, the kind of silence that meant she'd already lost. With a soft click, I closed the laptop. There would be more evidence. I'd gather it. Today wasn't about revenge, it was about precision. The more I understood, the less control her lies had over me. and soon she'd understand what it felt like to be quietly cornered. It had started with a suspicion. A wet Wednesday night, thin rain streaking the windshield, the kind of chill that seeps past your coat. My car idled across from the cafe where Sophie swore she met Natalie every week. But Natalie never came. 20 minutes after 6, Sophie emerged instead, wearing a tan trench coat I didn't recognize, sunglasses too large for the hour. I followed, keeping my headlights low. Within 10 minutes, we were downtown. The cab stopped outside a gleaming glass high-rise, Feldman and Carr LLP. I knew the firm from a past client who'd renovated their reception. Sophie walked through the revolving doors with the confidence of someone expected. What happened next cut deeper than the destination itself. I waited. 20 minutes later, a young woman stepped out of the lobby, tablet in hand, checked something on a clipboard, then turned back inside. As she crossed the pool of golden light spilling from the entrance, I caught the name written at the top of her client log. Jessica Hartley. Not Sophie. She had gone into a law firm using an alias. This wasn't casual, it was deliberate, and it meant something larger was in motion. That's when I realized I needed backup. The name Miranda Lane came to mind, a private investigator I'd worked with years ago when a client tried to forge property permits. She'd cracked the case in under 48 hours. By Thursday midday, we were sitting in a secluded booth at a quiet diner on the edge of the city. Miranda, dressed in black with her hair tied back, had her tablet open before the waitress even brought water. "It's your wife," she said, scanning the file I'd sent. "I want hard evidence, dates, details, no guesswork." "You're thinking she's cheating?" "Already confirmed, Blake Turner. I've got hotel bills, call logs, and she's using a fake name at a law office." Miranda's eyes sharpened. "That's strategy, not a fling." "I know." She tapped her stylus against the screen. "Give me 3 days." She only needed 2. By Saturday morning, her email was in my inbox. Attachments labeled simply, Exhibit AF. Photographs, Sophie and Blake on a rooftop bar, kissing. Documents, a lease for a short-term condo in his name. Bank records, funds drained from our accounts. Call logs, dinner reservations, even a transcript from a party caught through an ambient microphone. That was the one I opened last. It started harmlessly, clinking glasses, idle chatter, then Sophie's voice. "Honestly, he's so predictable. Still makes my lunch like we're teenagers. I could cheat in broad daylight and he'd still pick me up from yoga." Laughter, then Blake's voice. "So what's the move? Ride the Alimony Express?" Sophie laughed again. "I'll drain him dry before the year's out." I read it twice. Still no shouting, no furniture thrown. Just a steady calm as I forwarded every file to my lawyer with the subject line, "Now ready." By Monday morning, I was in the office of Malcolm Hayes, 3-piece suit, voice like granite, the kind of man who could make a courtroom lean in his favor. I wasn't searching for answers anymore. I was reclaiming what was mine, one verified truth at a time. He sat anchored behind a massive oak desk, fingers steepled beneath his chin, his frame as unmoving as carved stone. I handed him the dossier Miranda had assembled. He opened it with deliberate slowness, like a priest leafing through a register of sins. "This is thorough," he said eventually, eyes never leaving the pages. "Extremely," I answered. "I want every angle covered." He offered a single deliberate nod and set the folder down as though it were fragile glass. "Daniel," he began, "truth can help, but it's not armor. Courts don't reward virtue, they calculate impact. I get it. She filed yesterday," he continued, drawing another file from the drawer. My jaw clenched, though my posture didn't change. "She's alleging emotional harm," he said, "claims she's felt unsafe at home, says you coerced and manipulated her." I gave a faint, dry laugh. "That's the story she's spinning to excuse cheating?" "It's not an excuse," he said evenly. "It's strategy, and frankly, it's sharp." Leaning forward, his voice dropped. "You come across as calm. That's an asset. But the second you lose your temper, it turns into ammunition. Raise your voice, and you're a threat. Send one harsh text, and you're unstable." "I haven't." "Then don't." He slid a single sheet from the file across to me. She wants spousal support, says you controlled all the finances, claims she can't support herself after years of emotional strain in the marriage. A knot tightened in my stomach. Sophie was no dependent. She'd worked in retail, organized PR events, and managed branding campaigns from her laptop. She knows exactly what she's doing, I said. She's faking helplessness. She's selling vulnerability, Malcolm corrected, and juries buy vulnerability every time. I leaned back in the leather chair, staring toward the ceiling. She's threatened to use an old voice memo, I said, from a fight years back. I had raised my voice. She had recorded it. Malcolm didn't so much as blink. Then we drown it in context. A clip alone can sting, but set beside infidelity, fake identities, and a financial motive, it loses its bite. I nodded. The feeling rising in me wasn't rage. It was steel cooling into resolve. Do I have a shot at winning? If we're careful and you keep your cool, she won't just lose her claim, she'll lose credibility. I left with the folder in my briefcase, my steps unhurried. Outside, the sky was the dull sheen of brushed metal. The air felt quieter. Sophie wanted a public brawl. I wasn't here for mud. My cuts would be clean, surgical. She wouldn't see the scalpel until it was done. The leak hit on a Thursday. I was mid-second coffee, scanning blueprints for a client turning an old Victorian into a shared workspace. The morning was ordinary, until my phone began to pulse with relentless vibration. First a coworker, then a cousin I barely knew anymore, then numbers I didn't recognize. Notifications piled up like bricks in a wall. Before I looked, I knew. When I finally pressed play, the recognition was instant. My voice, sharp, raised, reverberating in a room I'd rather forget. You always do this. Twist things until you're the victim. That night, 2 years earlier. She'd stayed out until 3 without a word. I'd worried. She'd laughed at that worry. I'd snapped. No profanity, no threats, just hurt and volume. She'd recorded it. Now it was online. No lead-in, no explanation. 30 seconds that made me exactly the villain people were ready to see. The comments rolled in like tide water. Scary how fast he changes. No woman should be spoken to that way. He's the type who plays nice in public and explodes at home. I didn't burn with anger. I felt a hollow cold. Not because they misunderstood, but because this reaction was precisely what she'd intended. I stayed quiet, observing, thinking. That afternoon, I called her. She picked up on the second ring. Neither of us spoke first. So this is the route you're taking, I said. A short, bitter laugh. Route? Daniel, this is survival. You cut up a years-old fight and passed it off as new. Maybe people should know you're capable of that. I'm capable of raising my voice, I said. Not of hurting you. You know that. Her tone softened into something almost smug. It's not about what I know. It's about what they'll believe. Maybe I'm just better at this game than you. I let the silence stretch until her own words hung heavy between us. You're burning down the house we built, I said. And I'll walk away spotless, she replied sweetly, because pain, when dressed right, always wins belief. She wasn't wrong about one thing. Sympathy was rushing her way. The clip spread, blogs framed it as proof of a toxic marriage, hashtags multiplied like weeds. But she didn't realize the storm she'd called up was already shifting course. That night I called Miranda. Get the original recording, all of it. By morning she had it, 3 uncut minutes. What Sophie hadn't shown, her mocking me, taunting me to react, laughing when I didn't, and at the end, her quiet, triumphant whisper, finally, got it. It was bait, pure and calculated. The full recording didn't indict me, it exposed her. I sent it to Malcolm without a word, then sat at my desk, hands folded, eyes on the phone. I wasn't chasing strangers' judgments. I wasn't pleading. Truth doesn't need to shout. It waits. And when it arrives, it's already louder than anything else. The file from Miranda stayed unopened on my desk for 2 hours. I knew what was inside. She'd walked me through it, but playing it would make it real again. Sophie's voice came first, threading through the background hum of a crowded room. Music thumped low, glasses chimed, laughter rose and fell. Somewhere nearby, champagne corks released their muffled pops. "You don't get it," Sophie said, her words sharpened by alcohol. "Daniel thinks loyalty is some kind of grand performance. Like, yeah, you bought me a car, paid off my cards. Am I supposed to throw a parade?" A man, likely Blake, laughed. Another woman added, "But he's sweet. It's almost tragic." Sophie's voice lowered, slurring slightly. "He's spineless, babe, and he'll pay for that. Trust me." By the time she finished speaking, her words had already stripped him in her mind. That was the final line before I killed the video. I didn't need to hear a syllable more. I stayed in my chair, eyes tracing the ridges in the wood of my desk, while her voice looped in my head. I'll drain him completely. Not a suggestion to reconcile, not a tired confession that things were falling apart, not even the blunt declaration of wanting out. This was strategy, precision. She'd taken my patience, my civility, my refusal to lash out, and forged them into her own blade. And she'd done it with a smile, drink in hand, likely still savoring the taste of Blake Turner's kiss. I pressed forward and sent the file to Malcolm, then to Miranda, and finally to my own inbox as insurance. Only after that did I call her. The line rang several times before she picked up. I didn't speak. Just let my breathing fill the gap. She broke the silence first. "Daniel." I said her name evenly, each syllable deliberate. "Sophie." She paused. "You're not calling to say you're sorry, are you?" The smugness slid into her voice like a well-practiced reflex. "I listened to the party recording," I told her, my voice steady. She said nothing. "You sounded satisfied," I added. "Unburdened, intentional." More silence. I leaned back, watching the city's light fade. "So, how far back does this go? Was it the alias at the firm, the planted memo, the sob story?" Her sigh was sharp, impatient. "You have no idea how this works." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said. "That's why I'm not shouting, not smashing things. That would be exactly what you want." "I told you before, Daniel," she said, steel creeping into her tone. "You're not cut out for this. You don't have the teeth for it." "And yet," I replied, "you sound unsettled." She let out a dry, clipped laugh. "You honestly think that clip means anything? People say worse for laughs at parties." "Sure," I said, "but those people aren't busy convincing a judge they're delicate and devastated." The silence lengthened before she spoke again, softer now. "You think anyone will side with you over me?" "I don't need them to take sides," I said. "I just need the evidence to speak. And Sophie?" "What?" "It already has." I ended the call. No threats, no grand declarations. Just an ending. Then I went to the closet, pulled out my grandfather's chess set, oak and ivory worn smooth with decades. I laid out the board. I picked up the queen, her piece, and held it for a long moment before setting it down. It was my move now, and I wasn't playing to endure. I was playing to win. Her reply came swiftly, precise as a scalpel. By Tuesday, Malcolm called me in. His tone was controlled, but I could hear the strain tightening it. "She's filed an emergency motion," he said. "Ex parte. It's theatrical, just emotional enough to land. Her attorney knows exactly how to package it." "What's her angle?" I asked, bracing for the hit. "That you're controlling. That you dictated the finances, kept her isolated, silenced her when she felt unsafe." "And the memo?" "Front and center. She's casting you as abusive." I leaned back. "So she's opening with the attack?" Malcolm nodded. "Exactly. She's painting herself as the peacemaker, says she begged for mediation but you lashed out, claims years of emotional intimidation, and now that she's leaving, you've turned explosive. None of it's true?" "Truth isn't always the deciding factor when a good story's in play," he said. "If we don't counter quickly, early mediation could tilt her way. Judges are people. Sympathy sways." I said nothing, eyes drifting past his window where the city blurred into motion. Somewhere out there, Sophie was probably sipping an overpriced latte, practicing her next tremble-voiced performance. "There's a hearing next week," Malcolm went on. We'll file a counter. Until then, no contact, no posts, nothing she can twist. Understood? Understood. Outside, the clouds hung low, pressing the sky into a dull gray. A mist clung to my collar, not quite rain, just enough to settle in. I reached my car but didn't open the door. Something had shifted. This wasn't about leaving anymore. It was about erasing me. She wasn't simply ending us. She was rewriting who I was. That's when a throat cleared behind me. "You look like you could use this," someone said. I turned. A woman in her early 30s, dark curls pulled back simply, a lanyard marked Feldman and Carr at her neck. She held out a plain black umbrella. "I saw you inside," she said. "You're Daniel, right? Sophie's husband?" "Ex-husband, almost." She hesitated, stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I shouldn't say anything, but last week I overheard her. She was laughing. Said she knows how the judge thinks. That men like you always lose round one because you play too nice." I lifted a brow. "Why tell me?" "Because it sounded rehearsed, like she's done it before. And you didn't seem like the man she described." She pressed the umbrella into my hand, turned to go, then stopped. "My name's Kara. If you ever need someone who knows the building, I'm around." She disappeared into the mist. I stood there, letting her words settle. Maybe Sophie wasn't the only one with spectators. Maybe the board wasn't as rigged as I thought. The mediation room felt like a dentist's lobby, overlit, overchilled, desperate to project neutrality. One wall held rows of law books, another a harmless abstract meant to provoke nothing at all. Sophie arrived 5 minutes late, clad in a pale gray suit, hair in a flawless bun. Not a wrinkle, not a strand out of place. She moved as if stepping onto a morning talk show. Modest smile, measured poise, gaze tilted just enough to seem breakable. Her lawyer, lean and silver-haired, eyes always scanning, slid into the seat beside her, opening his folder with the confidence of a man about to pull off a flawless trick. I didn't look at her, didn't offer a greeting. That was Malcolm's territory. My hands rested lightly on the folder in front of me. Because the match had already begun, Sharon, the mediator, began the meeting with her usual polished reminder. Keep tempers in check, focus on solutions, and aim for a settlement everyone could live with. I acknowledged her with a polite nod. Across the table, Sophie offered a restrained smile, the kind designed to appear benign while hiding its calculations. Her attorney spoke first, using the measured, practiced rhythm of someone who'd spent years in courtrooms. He laid out their case. Sophie's supposed emotional suffering, the toll our marriage had taken, my alleged volatility, and her claimed need for both safety and financial support. Then came the smoking gun, the notorious voice memo. He presented it as proof of a hostile environment, calling it an act of restraint on Sophie's part that we weren't already in trial. All she wanted, he insisted, was to move forward. That word, closure, hung in the air while I stayed silent, letting the stillness stretch until their momentum faded. Then I slid my folder across the table. No speeches, no build-up, just a quiet push of the file toward them. Sophie's lawyer opened it, his eyes scanning the first page. His expression shifted, composure cracking in an instant. Photographs came first, then receipts, transcripts, a private investigator's detailed notes, hotel reservations, a false name registered at a law firm, and finally the audio recording of Sophie laughing about how she'd bleed me dry. He kept turning the pages without comment, then glanced toward her. Sophie leaned forward, still wearing that faint, diplomatic smile, until she caught sight of his face. Her lips stiffened. She took the file from him and flipped through the evidence. I watched the color fade from her cheeks, as if drained away drop by drop. Her hand trembled near the table's edge, her breath shallow. That was my moment to speak. "I want it on record," I said evenly, "that any claim of emotional abuse must be weighed against these full recordings, along with the documented attempts to provoke that image." Sharon blinked, perhaps unsure how to respond. Sophie's voice, when it came, was thinner than usual. "Daniel, this isn't what I wanted. This is cruel." I looked at her, really looked, perhaps for the first time that day. "Interesting," I said quietly. "You mocked me in another man's lap, told your friends I was spineless, and now you want a clean, quiet ending?" My tone stayed steady. "Sorry, honey. That's not how this works." She flinched at the word honey. Always hated it when she wasn't the one to use it. She began to reply, but her lawyer cut in with a raised hand. "I'll need a private word with my client," he said, tight-lipped. They left the room. Sharon studied me for a long moment. That was direct. I didn't answer, just leaned back with my hands resting in my lap, feeling, for the first time in months, neither rage nor fear, only a settled finality. When they returned, Sophie's shoulders had lost their rigid posture. No smile, no acknowledgement. Her lawyer cleared his throat. "My client is prepared to settle privately." I gave no reply. There was nothing left to add. The courtroom wasn't silent in any comforting sense. It was the brittle quiet before something breaks. Sophie sat opposite me, eyes flicking anywhere but toward mine. The perfect polish was gone. No makeup, no softened edges, only a too-snug navy suit and fatigue etched into her face. Her attorney, once brimming with confidence, looked cautious. At the bench, the judge methodically squared her papers before speaking. "Mr. Alcott, you may proceed." Malcolm stood and presented the evidence without flourish, point by point, crisp and unshakable. Receipts, bank statements, complete audio recordings, not just the infamous memo, but the full exchange revealing Sophie deliberately baiting me. The moment she whispered finally under her breath after my reaction. Then the party audio, her unmistakable voice, laughing about draining me of every dollar. The judge let the clip play without interruption, her gaze fixed on Sophie. When it was their turn, Sophie's lawyer tried to shift the narrative. The party clip was taken out of context, the false name a measure for privacy, and her conduct a flawed reaction to genuine distress. It was damage control for a ship already sinking. Sophie herself then took the stand. Her voice cracked midway through her second sentence. She reached for tears, for charm, for a wounded dignity, but each fell flat. When asked why the full voice memo had been withheld, she stared at her hands, saying nothing. The judge leaned back, her voice calm but firm. "What I see is not a victim in crisis, but a deliberate attempt to manipulate this court and the public through selective truths and emotional theater. You came here claiming victimhood and misused the process." She turned to her clerk. "Alimony is denied. Possible fraud charges may be considered upon motion." Sophie's face drained of color. Her lawyer's posture sagged. And me? I simply leaned back. No victory rush, no gloating. Just the sense of a weight finally set down. There was no applause waiting outside, but when I stepped into the corridor, I knew the burden I'd carried in was not leaving with me. The truth had done the work. Months rolled past. The city shifted through seasons without once pausing to check if I was all right. That was fine. I didn't need it. My consultancy began to gather speed, slow at first, then with sudden momentum. People learned that I didn't just design buildings. I stabilized lives. I understood what it meant to withstand pressure, to face collapse, and to rebuild stronger. Clients came in hesitant and left anchored. I knew exactly what that felt like. My mornings turned into rituals. An early walk, coffee strong enough to stand on, and a stretch of quiet. The noise and games of the past were gone. I stopped checking Sophie's online life, stopped wondering about the stories she told. She could keep whichever version helped her sleep. That chapter felt like a movie I'd sat through out of obligation, one where I'd mistaken the antagonist for the protagonist. But life likes a final scene. One Wednesday afternoon in the park, the sky gold before a promised rain, I was walking beside Kara. Yes, Kara. The paralegal from Feldman and Carr, who, once upon a time, handed me both an umbrella and a warning when I needed them most. She'd resurfaced after the verdict, saying she respected the way I'd handled things. One coffee led to dinner. Dinner led to more talks. She never asked for the ugly details. She never pushed for explanations. If I wanted to talk, she'd simply listen. If I didn't, she'd let the air fill with easy stories, quirky accounts of her hyperactive dog, catastrophic adventures in cooking, and her staunch conviction that anyone who abandons a shopping cart can't be trusted. Being in her company felt like walking beside a quiet stream, both of us in worn-in sneakers. That day, we were midway through a spirited argument over whether pancakes truly outrank waffles when I caught sight of someone on a nearby bench. It was Sophie. Hair pulled back, eyes unfixed, a faded purse balanced on her knees. She wasn't scrolling through her phone or speaking to anyone, just sitting inside the stillness. A mild breeze nudged her coat collar upward, but she left it askew. For the briefest heartbeat, our eyes locked. I didn't break stride. Kara's voice carried on, my nods punctuating her sentences as though the moment hadn't altered the air between us. We passed close enough that I could have counted the steps separating us. Yet I felt Sophie's gaze settle on me, the way an old memory can rest its hand on your shoulder when you least expect it. I didn't look back, not to seem strong, but because nothing behind me was mine to take anymore. What had needed closure was already sealed away. The past doesn't require ceremony, only room to exist without trespass. Maybe that's the heart of healing, ceasing to wrestle for proof of what's real and continuing onward as if the truth has always been in your possession. And so the page turns here. I'd welcome your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for sharing this space with me, and if these words found a place in you, I hope you'll linger for the next story. Until then, my friend.